What is up? It is Merg here, and I want to be talking about one of my favorite classes today in Necromancer. Now, a lot of these build guides and tier lists that are coming out is putting Necromancer in last place. People are saying it's not good for hardcore, it's not good for softcore, it's not good leveling, campaign, endgame, bosses, whatever the case may be. Everybody is putting Necromancer dead last, and I just don't understand it. I'm currently playing on a hardcore Necromancer. Obviously, I've not died once. I've been blowing through everything with ease, and I'm only level 45. And I'm going to be going over the build I currently have, the aspects that I have, what my sacrifices are, what I'm going to be using, and I'm going to show you the rotation for the build and I'm going to go out and do this live. So there's going to be no editing. This is all going to be done live, so you can see that there's no tricks to this, and like Necromancer on my list is top tier. You can one-shot bosses, you can one-shot mobs, you can constantly keep your health up and your essence regeneration, and it's perfect for hybrid AoE and single target damage, and I'm going to be going over this and showing you how it's done. So let's hop in here. My attack power right now is 608, my armor is 2536, my life is at 1012, strength is at 117, intelligence is at 139, willpower is 120, dexterity is 138. So let's go into my offensive stats. And what I'm basically just going to be going over is my critical strike chance and critical strike damage. My chance is low right now. It's 13.7, but I'm going to prove that wrong in just a second. My critical strike damage is already at 135.6. And with this one aspect, I double both of these. With this aspect on the Demon Blade of Grasping Veins, I gain 40% critical strike chance for 6 seconds when I cast Corpse Tendrils, and then I deal 120% more critical strike damage when the tendril is damaging an enemy. That's going to bring my critical strike chance to 63.7%, and my critical strike damage to 255.6% damage. I mean, I'm hitting 30k crits at level 45 with not even maxed out geared with jewels and everything like that, like not even using consumables. These are the numbers I'm going to be hitting. So for the rest of my gear, I'm going to go over it. For the helm, I got the when hit while not healthy, a magical bubble is summoned around you for 4 seconds. This is a nice aspect to have when you're leveling, going throughout the end game, hardcore, whatnot. This is perfect because when you get in those sticky situations, this is going to be your safe place for 4 seconds. If you need 2-3 seconds for a cooldown, you can just stand in this bubble and you're basically immune. For chest, becoming injured while crowd control grants you unstoppable for 4 seconds. This effect has a 40-second cooldown. This is also another one for those sticky situations. For my gloves, I have attacking enemies with a basic skill increases the damage of your next core skill cast by up to 30%. This is going to be really helpful on single target damage with the Bone Spear. For my pants, each time that Bone Storm damages any, gain a barrier equal to 4% of your base life for 10 seconds. Now, I can stand in a mob of enemies and boss, cast this, and I just won't take any damage. And before the time is even up, everything's dead anyways. You don't have to worry about it. Blood Mist triggers corpse explosion on surrounding enemies. I don't really use this. This is just I don't even have the aspects that are exactly for this build, and I'm still blowing through this content like it's just trivial content. But this is nice to have, Blood Mist, and again, another sticky situation, pop Blood Mist, get out of it, but you can still deal damage because it's going to be blowing up those corpses. For Amulet, you have 24% increased critical strike chance against injured enemies. While you are healthy, you gain 48% increased crowd control duration. For my rings, critical strikes with bone skills increase your essence regeneration by 20%. And then my other ring, your sacrifice bonuses are increased by 18%. So let's go over my sacrifices. For Skeletal Warriors, we're taking Skirmishers for the extra 6% critical strike chance. Skeletal Mages, we're sacrificing Cold for 18% damage to vulnerable enemies, which are always going to be making enemies vulnerable. And then my Golem, we're going to be sacrificing the Iron Golem for that 35% increased critical strike damage. Again, that's now going to make my critical strike damage 290%. So what's up? I'm back. Sorry, I had to stop for a second. So let's go over the abilities that we're going to be using. Bone Splinters We're going to grab Enhanced Bone Splinters and Acolyte's Bone Splinters. This is going to get us a higher critical strike chance, and is also going to help us with making enemies vulnerable and just a little bit of essence generation. And this also works with our one legendary aspect, that every time we cast with a basic skill, we get 5% more damage, leading up to 30% damage in total. We're going to go into our big single target damage dealer, which is going to be the Bone Spear. We're going to grab Enhanced Bone Spear for that extra 3 shards of damage, and we're also going to grab Supernatural Bone Spear, which is going to be making the first enemy hit vulnerable. This is going to help us keep all enemies vulnerable for that extra 18% from our Book of the Dead sacrifice. We're going to go down here, we'll grab Blood Mist. Blood Mist is going to be for those tricky situations that you need to get out of when you get crowd controlled and whatnot, and it's also going to give you a little bit of healing. We're also going to go down and grab Corpse Explosion. This is going to be our big damage dealer for AoE explosions, and it's also going to help us with that more bit of essence generation. We're going to grab Enhanced Corpse Explosion for bigger radius. We're also going to grab Plague Corpse Explosion to, again, help damage with vulnerable. We're also going to grab a Grim Harvest. This is going to generate even more essence for us. Then we're also going to grab Fueled by Death. Since we're always going to be popping those corpses, this is going to help us get even more damage output. We're going to go down here and grab Corpse Tendrils. Corpse Tendrils is what's going to be helping us when we're going through packs of enemies. It's going to pull all those enemies together, and with the one aspect, it's going to give us that higher critical strike chance, and it's also going to give us that higher critical strike damage. For Corpse Tendrils, we're going to grab Enhanced Corpse Tendrils. We're also going to grab Plagued Corpse Tendrils, again, for more vulnerable damage. We're going to grab Serration for extra critical strike chance for each 10 essence you have upon cast. We're also going to grab Compound Fracture. This is going to give us just even more increased damage. And we're also going to grab Evulsion for more vulnerable damage. We're going to go down here, we're going to grab Standalone. We're not going to have any minions active, so this is just a big damage reduction bonus. We're also going to grab Memento Mori, which is going to increase all our sacrifices by 60%. So that 30% is now 90%. With critical strike damage, the 18% vulnerable is now 78% vulnerable. And then for the Skeletal Warriors, it's also going to give us a 23% critical strike chance. Now, this doesn't show for some reason under the stats, but it is active. I think it's just a current bug that these aren't showing with the ability Enhanced from Memento Mori. So we're also going to come down and we're going to grab our ultimate, which is going to be Bone Storm. Bone Storm is going to help us when we get in tricky situations, or if we just want to make sure we have that barrier active and we want that extra crit damage. So damage reduction is increased by 15%. So we're sitting at about 32% damage reduction when this is active. And they're also going to grab Supreme Bone Storm, which is going to give us even higher critical strike chance. So when we have used Corpse Tendrils and we use Bone Spear and we have Supreme Bone Storm active, we're going to be at about 80% critical strike chance. And then we're also going to grab Ossified Essence. This is one of the most powerful abilities for a Necromancer, and especially a Bone Spear Necromancer. Your Bone skills deal 1% increased damage for each point of essence you have above 50 upon cast. And our max essence for Necromancer, I believe, can be around 650. So that's 600% increased damage. So that would be, with the critical strike, you're seeing about almost 1,000 increased damage for that critical strike chance. Now, I'm going to pause here for a bit, and I'm going to come back live when I find a pack of enemies, or I'm just going to go into a dungeon and clear out some mobs so you can see just how effective this build can be. Whether we're talking about hardcore, softcore, endgame, hell tides, nightmare dungeons, whatever it is, this build will be able to accomplish whatever you want to do. Group play, solo play. Don't listen to these tier builds that streamers are putting out right now. They're making whatever they want, and they're pushing the tier builds out as fast as possible. They're not putting thought into this. The Necromancer is huge for group play. It's huge for solo play, and I'm going to show you just how effective it can really be. So this is just going to be some random dungeon I picked. As you can see, I have not yet completed this dungeon. I'm coming into it for the first time, and I'm just going to show you how effective this build can be at anything. Even if you don't know what you're going up against, you have the abilities and the utilities to use to clear out anything and everything. I want to get a group of enemies together right here. We're going to kill one. We're going to pop Corpse Tendrils, and then with that Corpse Tendril, we get that critical strike. So that's just going to clear out those mobs, free prisoners. All right, we have a big group, a decent sized group right here. I kind of want to get some more people in a group just to show you exactly how this build works and what it can do. Again, pop corpse tendrils on them, and then corpse explosions just to clear out the mobs. Now this is just going to be your rotation that you're going to use for trash mobs. Your rotation that you're going to use for elites and bosses is going to be slightly different. You're going to want to use Bone Spear to get that high damage input. But as you can see at level 47, I'm hitting 6k crits with Corpse Explosion. I mean, Corpse Explosion does what, 600-800 damage on average? I mean, it's not supposed to be doing this much damage, and here we are just obliterating everything in this dungeon. So again, we're going to clear some mobs, we're going to get corpse tendrils out there, pull everybody in, clear them out with Corpse Explosion. And you're sitting at almost an 80% critical strike chance, and we also have one legendary aspect, as you can see here. Your next core skill damage is going to do 5% more damage. Now once you hit an enemy, I think it's 5 times, you're going to be sitting at 30% skill damage with Bone Spear. So that's going to increase our critical strike damage over 300 with that. So I just want to run through here, try to find a good pack of mobs with maybe a good elite, or I'll come back at the boss. Okay, here we go. Here's a nice elite for us. Clear out some of these guys. I just want to get corpse tendrils in there. Let's get this stacked up. One shot. That's a 10k crit right there. At level 47, I'm hitting 10k crits. And I have seen my crits on bosses go up to 30k, which makes bosses almost one hit from the beginning. I mean, this build is going to be able to accomplish everything you want to accomplish. And again, I'm going to reiterate, play what you want, do what you want to do. If you're trying to find a good build, if you're listening to these tier guides, please take it with a grain of salt. Try out builds on your own to figure out what you like, what you want to play, and what you feel is going to be efficient for the gameplay you want to capture. Okay, here we have another enemy. I want to get this up to just show you how high the critical strike can get. I think that was a 31k critical strike. Alright, so I skipped ahead a little bit and just got to the end of this dungeon to where the boss is going to be. Just killed the rest of the trash mobs and whatnot. But I really want to show you what the build is going to be like on bosses, whether it be dungeon bosses, Helltide bosses, nightmare bosses. The build is going to work really well. So pretty much this is the rotation I do. I build up that 30% increase to damage until he drops a corpse that I can use. See, we're probably going to... So this is the one annoying thing. So there we have a corpse. We're going to just build that back up to 30. We're going to pop corpse tendrils on this corpse, and then we're going to hit him with the crits. And now once this build is a little bit more optimized with all the gear and stuff that we're going to be having, you'll be able to almost one-shot these bosses. I mean, this is under a 30-second boss kill right now. And that's just... everything's just going to be that easy. Once we get a little bit more corpses to drop on bosses with hued flesh, once our build is optimized more for more critical strike damage, we're going to be seeing like sub 5-second boss kills. I mean, that was less than 10-15 seconds for the boss kill. The only real thing with bosses is going to be getting that first corpse to drop so we can pop corpse tendril. And then once corpse tendril is popped, you'll be able to down the boss in a matter of seconds from there. So I want to travel back here, and I just want to go over a couple more things. Well, I'll just stay here and go over a couple more things. So one thing is going to be your stat priorities for gems. Now for amulets and jewelry, we're going to be getting the resistance to all elements. For our weapon, we're going to get more critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies. And for our armor, we're going to take that 2.5%. Well, not 2.5%. When we get to Imperial gems, I think it's around 5% maximum health. We'll have that on all armor. We'll have the vulnerable critical strike damage. And then we'll also have the diamonds for resistance to all. Now, in terms of Paragon board, I haven't made it to Paragon board yet. But basically, what you're going to be prioritizing is critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies, critical strike chance. You're going to be prioritizing increased damage to healthy enemies because we're going for those one shots, and healthy is 85% health and above. You're going to want to get out as much damage from there so that way you can just one-shot enemies. Take a little bit of nodes that do injured that just help clean up the kills, but mainly you're going to focus on the vulnerable damage, critical strike chance, and then also the healthy damage to elite and normal mobs. Now you can take the pathing however you want on the Paragon board. It doesn't really matter. You mainly want to look out for aspects that deal with critical strike damage and critical strike chance and anything that helps your Bone Spear and Corpse Explosion. Now, I can get the comments and concerns like, what is this going to be like late game? What is it going to be like on tier 100 Nightmare? The thing about this build is everything is going off of percentages. We're working off of the 120%, the 40%. There's no base values in this build. So you're going to scale constantly. No matter what content you're doing, you're going to be scaling off of percentages. So as long as you steadily upgrade your gear, and gear is not super important for this build. A lot of these aspects I don't even need for this build. The one aspect that really makes this build shine is going to be the Corpse Tendrils aspect. And that aspect you can get straight from the start in Kyrgyzstan. I had got it to drop before I even got to the dungeon in Kyrgyzstan for it. But as soon as Season 1 launches and you want to grab this right away, you can run straight to Kyrgyzstan before starting anything else, clear out that dungeon, get that aspect, and throw it on an amulet. Because you're not going to be upgrading your amulet nearly as much as you're going to be upgrading anything else. So that, like, the build is just so versatile in so many ways, you know, like with the Barbarian. Now, a lot of these big streamers are only running Champion's Demise, and they're basing their tier guides and their build guides off of Champion's Demise. And Blizzard has already said Champion's Demise is not working as intended, that it's going to be patched, that it's an exploit, and that people aren't playing the game as intended. So the intended way to play it is to go after you finish the campaign. You're going to do Tree of Whispers, you're going to do Hell Tides, and you're going to go into Nightmare Dungeons. And this build is built especially for running those, because you're pumping out AoE damage and you're pumping out single target damage. Like, this is the build that I would suggest using if you want a build that's good for hardcore, that's good for softcore, that's good for group play, solo play, whatever content you're doing. I see nothing wrong with this build. I have no trouble. Obviously, I'm on hardcore. I haven't died once. This is the build that I would recommend to anybody for what they want to do in this game. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and follow below, and put it in the comments if you're going to test out this build. And if you do test out this build, let me know what you think. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Everybody have a great day.